Hey, welcome back to FedUp, the #1 podcast where you can get up on all things Federal League. I am your host, Josh Stoll, and with us yet again, our executive producer, Mr. Chris Miner.
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Great.
Ready to talk some numbers?
Yeah, the nerds in our league should be real happy. A lot of numbers. Maybe the artists, too, will be happy because we took a very special field trip, you and I, up to Brooten, Minnesota. And the MaxBats facility, I mean, it's equal parts math and art and science. And it was just such a cool experience to see behind the curtain on how these bats are made. I did not have near the amount of appreciation that should be present in terms of the respect it takes to manufacture these things.
Right. Having your mind on quality while trying to keep up with the demand as you scale, right? And so a lot of my questions when we were touring is just, I was marveling at some of the automated things they had just because it's custom built exactly for how they need it. So it was really cool, just not only that, but just getting a whole sip of the process, if you will. And what's really cool, you have an idea and you really have no clue how much goes into this. So I'm glad we got to see it, and I'm glad we get to share a little bit at least with these people that are taking this in today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think, so many people enjoy just seeing how the sausage is made in this instance. But you got some great B-roll from us. We're going to have AJ Hadley from MaxBats on. We're going to chat a little bit more about the process with him and discuss some the other trending topics related to lumber in the Federal League. But following that, got another fun segment that we're going to do. It's all on numbers, all on stats. We're going to look at some individual performances from the season that was in 2025, call out some guys in recognition, do some awards. But the thing that stuck out to me, we got some really good players in this league.
Yeah. I was just doing some going through all the stats and leaders and trying to get all that sorted, and 181 players qualified to be in contention for the batting title. That's pretty nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So just to have that many qualify, let alone how many didn't. So you take that into consideration, then you actually get a look at, as you go category by category, you notice a lot of familiar faces across the board. You get a couple like, hey, who's that guy, sneaking in there too. So it's pretty cool to dive into this when you have the little time.
Yeah, it almost felt like a little bit of an autopsy of the season, like how do teams end up in the AAA? It's a lot of names that we cover all season long, so you're going to hear some familiar names in that. But there's some performances that, we didn't give any love to throughout the regular season that I'm excited to highlight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully this is the time to give as many people their name in the paper, modern day name in the paper, as we can, because these things, when we get recognized, they're fewer and far between as we get older. So let's celebrate it when we can, right?
I love it. Yeah, I remember how special that felt, opening up the Becker Citizen and seeing my name, in the box score or called out in an article. So yeah, hopefully guys get a little bit of that feeling today. But first, let's go ahead and show the folks what we came back with from our field trip up in Brooten at the MaxBat facility. Let's go ahead and bring on AJ Hadley, our first guest. Well, we are here with AJ Hadley of MaxBats, and when I say here, we are here. We are in Brooten, Minnesota at the MaxBats manufacturing facility. Been talking about this episode for weeks, feels like months, but so excited to bring you guys into this facility because this is a baseball nerds playground. AJ, welcome to FedUp, and thanks for having us.
Stoll, thanks a lot for coming out, and glad you guys can see the place.
It really is, like I mentioned, an absolute playground. Just to get an appreciation of the level of craftsmanship that goes into each of your bats, would you just walk us through the process verbally? I mean, when you start from picking a billet of wood all the way through the end process, just walk us through the level of detail that is involved.
Well, really it starts before picking that piece of wood. It starts with the computer and our software system that allows us to create all these individual, very customizable bat profiles. We're basically using a lot of geometry and plotting points on graphs and and making that compatible with our state-of-the-art CNC lathes. Then, we are selecting that piece of wood, basically a bunch of, highest quality pieces of lumber that we can get our hands on, and entering that data into our lathe, selecting that perfect piece of wood, and turning that bat out the same every time we're doing that.
So input equals output, right? So let's talk about where you get your wood from. I mean, it doesn't matter what we do to it. If we don't start with a great piece of wood, it doesn't matter what we do to it through the process, it's not going to turn out well. So talk about where you get your wood from.
The majority of our lumber is coming from Canada. Large maple forest, our yellow birch forest is coming from there. A little bit out of the New England states, New York, Pennsylvania, and a little bit out of the UP of Michigan as well. But yeah, the vast majority is all out of Canada.
When you were walking us through, you were talking about the importance of the grain and how you can tell, a quality piece of wood versus another. Tell us a little bit what the grain means and what MLB specifically is looking for when it comes to that.
So, everybody, the customer is wanting that highest level, highest grade piece of wood. And, they always say, I want that MLB piece of wood. And that's all of our wood. We're going to give you, the Apple Valley A player, the same piece of wood that we're going to give Max Muncy. That's our quality. That's our prime, so to say. And, it's all about the customer satisfaction portion of it, where they feel like they're getting that highest level piece of wood.
All right. So say I'm a new customer. All right. And I don't know one model from another. You've got tons of different models in back here. How would I go about, picking out what's right for me?
That we have thousands of different bat profiles. Obviously, we've tailored it and slimmed it down to the general public, so to say. We have our core models that you'll find on our website, find in our catalog, that it's very tailored to all levels of different hitters, right? So if you're a young high school kid coming out of aluminum bats, I want the biggest barrel possible, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case with wood, as these are not hollow like aluminum. So we try to educate, and younger hitters are going to need a more durable bat, something that's going to be a little more effective on miss hits, because we're not necessarily hitting that sweet spot every time like we think we are. But whereas a very large, extra large barreled bat is going to be more susceptible on breaking on change-ups away and inside heaters.
Tell me a little bit about this spot here. Why is this open here, and what's the significance?
So that is the ink dot. We do that for all of our bats, but at the MLB level, it's required. That is basically a window to that piece of wood, and they all get the ink dot test, which is just a dye that bleeds into that grain of wood that allows you to see how straight those grains are. And at the MLB level, they cannot be any more than 3 degrees off of center. So it's not much, but when your grains are not growing straight, that's where that bat is going to be weak. So you want those grains to be as tight as possible.
Talk me through the finishing process, the coloring, the hardening, the customization. What do we have in terms of finishing the book?
So we have a couple different levels of finish that we're using here. One, we have our top level. That's our Max Pro finish. That is an add-on that we have not truly released to the public yet. We're using it more for our MLB guys, our minor league guys. It is a feature that we'll give to you, but it's not on our website quite yet. It will be soon. That is using more of your automotive guns that you're used to seeing, spraying cars, where it's done by hand. It's a lot of mixing colors and chemistry and chemicals, and I'm not going to share with you everything. But then our standard finish, which it's a stain. We don't use any paints, because a paint is a cover. A stain, you want to be able to see the grains of wood through that stain. And the process is applying that color. We're going to put a sealer and a hardener on that piece of wood. It's going to cure overnight. Going to go through our chrome hardening machine to compress the grains. It's really going to make that barrel extra hard. It's going to get sanded, get all the impurities out of that piece of wood, and get it applied and ready with logos before our final finish. There's going to be a nice glossy finish, or a matte finish, which is more dull.
Something that makes me feel like a big leaguer when I order your products is I can put my name and my number and my team, everything on there. So I love that feature as well.
Yep. So at the very end, we're going to put all the individual information that needs to go on the bat. the model number, the wood species. It's going to come with a born-on date. You could put your name on it, your girlfriend's name, your signature, amongst a vast of other stuff, so to say, too. But yeah, it's very personalized for each individual.
Well, I'm not sure my wife would like it if I put my girlfriend's name on my bat, but even if you start with the most quality piece of wood, even it goes through your meticulous handcrafted process, there's still a number that doesn't measure up, right? I mean, anywhere from I think it's 3 to 7% of bats end up getting rejected. Yep. Why might that be?
You could have that most beautiful piece of wood and, just like you would go to a lumberyard, not every 2x4 is going to come out straight. You're going to see some warps, or you might see, you start cutting into that bat and you're going to see mineral streaks. There's so much variables with wood that you're not able to see with just your eyes on the outside. But there are some uses that we can still, like if we don't grab that right piece of wood sometimes, that it's still of game quality. There might be a blemish on the barrel, discoloration. Say there was a clear barrel. Well, there's a mineral streak in there that's dark. It's not eye peeling. Well, that's still a game quality bat, so we'll turn that into an X out. That's a very good BP bat or game, some still use in games. We're also able to turn some of these lesser quality pieces of wood into trophies.
Sure.
We'll they're good gift bats for, wedding dates and groomsmen and senior recognition awards. We can use them for, different, gifts for, wedding parties, birth of children, MVPs of the team, championship teams. We can put logos and different rosters on them, and it's still a good use of that piece of wood.
Earlier in the season, we talked a little bit about torpedo bats. Now, at the time, we said it remained to be seen if it was going to be, flash in the pan or around to stay. What have you found here, both at the professional and the amateur levels?
Well, yeah, last spring we were going through it. That was the prime time. At the MLB level now, there's even more changes happening within the torpedo itself. It's not as prevalent in the media. Now a vast majority of them are still using it. You can watch a game on any given night and they're all over the place. But you're also seeing a lot of those torpedo bats completely blowing up.
Sure.
The concept is there. You're taking wood away from places you're not supposed to hit the ball with. And it's causing a lot of reverberation when you're hitting the ball in the end. It's putting a lot of pressure and a lot of flex on that handle. Well, the handle is the thinnest part, and that's where it's going to be the weakest. At the amateur level, I would say it was hot to trot right off the bat. It has since cooled down. I think everybody wanted to try the newest fad and what's popular now and what can raise my batting average 20 points. But it's not made for. In my opinion, it's not made for the weekend warriors like us that, we have our 9 to 5s and we jump in the batting cage a half hour before the game and we're not hitting that same part of the barrel every time. At the MLB level, at the minor league level, that's their livelihood and they're hitting that same spot of the bat over and over and over again.
Weather's cooling down. We're starting to get into the fall season. Football's coming on, reminding us again that we're headed towards what is traditionally an off season. Talk to me a little bit about storage of the bat, right? Is this something I should just leave in my trunk, leave in my garage, in the off season? Is it going to make a difference?
It definitely does. Our climate here in Minnesota, it's ever changing. It could be 2 different climates in the same day, right? In the summertime, you're not going to want to leave that bat in the trunk of your car. It's going to add moisture. It's going to add weight to your bat. Now, on the flip side, when we get to 22 below come January and it's sitting in your garage, that piece of wood is going to lose moisture and it's going to dry out and it's going to give it a better probability of breaking come next spring when you want to use it again. So yeah, it's very important to keep that in a controlled climate.
Maybe build a humidor out.
Yeah, right. And that's something that we have here too is, our wood inventory. We do have multiple humidors here that are used more often in the wintertime, not so much in the summer, just based on relative humidity.
All right, I'll talk to the wife about the new addition we're putting in there then to keep my collection.
Cigars and baseball.
That's right. Some of God's greatest creations. I mentioned we're heading into the fall season. A lot of guys start to, pick up with different teams. We've got the Hickory tournament coming up for the Federal Leaguers. Start to travel to Florida to Arizona, of course, the Roy Hobbs, the MSBL. But you're right in the thick of things right now with the NBA playoffs. What would you say the amateur scene means to MaxBat here?
Well, the NBA, as we know, we are the official bat of the NBA, and we have a very good relationship with those guys, as also being a part of it myself. But this is our roots. These are Minnesota amateur baseball is very near and dear to us. There's a ton of teams around here that, it happened this week. I need a bat or two, for the following weekend, Labor Day weekend tournament. We can turn a bat like that and have it ready for them by next weekend. And there's close to 300 amateur teams in the part of the NBA. There's, how many teams are within the Federal League, the Twin Cities Men's Baseball League. This is the largest community of amateur baseball players, and that's kind of who we are. And that's who essentially made us.
Yeah, no, that's great. If I'm a new customer, right, I have a little trepidation around, venturing out, trying something new. Your bats do come with a warranty, right? But I do know that, we're in the business of hurling a fast-moving object and hitting it with a thin piece of wood, so I understand that. Tell us what kind of warranty comes with each of your products.
Well, slow you down there. Not all of our bats come with a warranty. So, on the warranty side of things, it's all going to start within, our quality control. We will stand behind a bat that is not up to our standards. If a bat breaks on the very first time, probably means there was something wrong with it. Okay. But when the core of a bat break and a warranty, it usually comes down to user error, unfortunately. Yeah. It's getting fooled on a changeup away that when you're sitting fastball, and it's getting beat on inside and getting hit off the hands. It's unfortunate. It's an expensive product, but we are also able to work with you on stuff like that. And we also have an alternative. We do offer a composite all maple bat that does come with a 4-month warranty. That's on our website as well, but it's a fiberglass wrapped handle that is going to add extra life and durability to that bat itself. And it's more forgiving on mishits. It's built to withstand some of the pressure put on the handle when you get fisted.
There's no better job security than changeups and a 2-seam fastball, right?
Absolutely.
Well, if you haven't had the courage to take us up on the FedUp promo code, you can still use that for a 20% discount on a MaxBat. You can get an idea of the craftsmanship, just through some of our footage on this episode, but it's just absolutely unbelievably quality product. You mentioned you're getting the same lumber, whether you're an amateur player or an MLB player. To sweeten the pot, all orders that come in through the end of the Hickory tournament, we're going to put into a raffle drawing, and one person who's put in an order with using the FedUp code will get a second bat at absolutely no cost to them as well. So, AJ, thank you so much for having us, for showing us around, for making such great products, that we can go to game battle with each and every week. But thank you for your sponsorship, your friendship.
Absolutely.
Appreciate having us.
Hey, any opportunity that I can talk about baseball with other baseball loving guys, I'm here for it.
That's it. You're in the right community, the right space for sure. Really appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks.
Well, fantastic to have AJ Hadley of MaxBats on. I've gotten to know him throughout the years, and he's become a great friend, but love him opening up the doors and showing us around. We are so grateful for MaxBats sponsorship this year. Definitely made a lot of our production value very, very possible. So very grateful for that partnership. Hope it continues into 2026. But so great to show people some of the footage you grab from there and talk a little bit about that process, because like I mentioned earlier, it's just so underappreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing when you go to a spot like that is just taking it all in. It was pretty cool. One thing I wish we would have, if we would have had a day to just chronicle a work day up there, something like that would have been sweet, because the people up there are just the nicest people in the world. Was there a handful of like a half dozen people there maybe while we were there. Couldn't have been nicer, more accommodating. Just great experience altogether with no hassle at all. And so it made the long drive worth it for real.
Yeah, they're a lean team up there for sure. They get a lot done with the resources they have, but
the thing that stuck out to me was all of the pictures of the pros that they have on the walls there who have used their products through the years. I mean, it's so many people. It's just fantastic to have a Minnesota company that is just so involved at the major league level.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to do is step in there and you basically have testimonials right there in front of you to see. So what they're doing is working. And if you think the guys on the wall don't know what they're talking about, I don't know what the hell you're watching. So yeah, it was awesome and great stuff. So I mean, get orders in before, for Hickory. They've been really awesome to us, and the more we can do to give back or make it worth their while is awesome. So, stock up for winter, look forward to next year, get your bro a gift. Who knows? Whatever.
Yeah, we, AJ highlighted on it a little bit. We recognized our batting champion this year with a novelty bat with his name and average on there. Herm Solomon with a 429 this year led our group. Such a great way to recognize your individual performers. And absolutely, I mean, just the fact that we are getting the same pieces of lumber that these major league guys are getting, that level of quality, we're not worthy, right? Would be the Waynesboro line. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like Chris said, get your orders in. Reminder of the offer that we're going to do. All orders between now and the end of the Hickory that go in with using promo code FedUp. Not only will you save 20%, but you will be eligible to win a free bat drawing of whatever you ordered. We'll draw for that, and we'll go ahead and notify the winner on our X thread.
Yep.
Well, it is time now to dive a little deeper into the numbers from the season that was, recognize some individual performance. Got your pocket protectors ready.
This is square root. Okay, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Baseball is such a numbers game. I always love that statistician that, shared stats are like bikinis. I've shared it on, these airwaves before, but, they show a lot. They don't show everything. I just love that quote because it's true. You look at a stat line, some of them are so representative of a performance and others can certainly be a little misleading in some directions. I will also toss out the disclaimer here that we are subject to the information on the website. So if you didn't put in your stats, if you put them in incorrectly and we're reporting on that, that's on you, man, right?
As long as we're talking subjectivity, we are also subject to the keepers of the particular books.
That's true.
And
that's true.
If your stomach just got tied up in a knot, I'm talking about you.
So let's get into it. Let's start with an obvious spot. We're going to start on the offensive side of the categories, and batting average, one of those fairly telling statistics, I think, on a season's performance. Obviously there could be a lot of bleeders, broken bats, in here, but not from this group. I mean, we're looking at I think you're going to throw a graphic up of the top 10, but looking at the top 6 or so, these guys are perennial top hitters. They all have a lot of solid contact, and there's not going to be a lot of new names on this list. Names like Tom Corcoran with East Metro, Jack Nelson, 591 with Minoka. I mean, these guys are oftentimes MVP candidates, top performers. Any surprises so far on this list for you?
No. I mean, all familiar faces that seriously, except for Scott. But he's been a Kimball guy, town ball guy forever, right?
Yeah.
Hey, same faces you kind of see year to year, season to season, with the addition of Scott, who's known by most people in this league to begin with, just from his town ball acumen. So, yeah, no big surprises when I first take a glance at it. However, if you were to ask me who was going to lead the league in hitting before the year, this wouldn't have been my guess, even though I've lamented or I've gone on about how he's one of the most complete players in the league, but I would not have pegged him as a batting title or snatching the batting title this year.
Yeah, I mean, rounding out that list, you mentioned Scott Marquardt of Kimball fame. He actually had a walk-off home run in a Class C championship game a number of years ago. Great to have him in the league. I know he played in the MSMABA with Luxembourg for a while, but looking for a couple more innings a year, and he's latched on with the Waconia guys. Welcome addition there. The last two on this top five, Jamie Steinberg, obviously a name that has been around a long time in the Federal League. If you look at the all-time pitching statistics, he's a guy that is littered on that list for just about every statistical category, but getting it done with the bat this year, 636, that ends up the sixth best single season batting average in Federal League history. So Jamie Steinberg, I don't know how you don't put this guy in the Hall of Fame. He's eligible. He was eligible this year, didn't get in this year. I think he's got to be a shoo-in for next year. What an unbelievable season.
Well, first of all, that's news to me, that last part. Second thing, you asked if I had surprises during that first part. When we got to the top of this list, end of this list, you expect to see his name here, but being in the hitting section was kind of a surprise, just given all the top tier talent in this league and that it's batting average, you know what I mean? And so it was pretty cool that just have a random name who just happens to be known for something else primarily stepping in and just raking this year. So and it sounds, the Lobos needed a lot of that, I think, this year with the people and the availability and stuff. So stepped up like a glue guy does, right?
You nailed it. He's always been a good hitter, but what an incredible season that Jamie had. Congrats to him. Congrats to the Lobos. But yes, our batting champion from the East Metro Mammoth. That probably wouldn't have shocked a lot of people if it was a Mammoth player. But yeah, you're right. Nate Stark hitting 650. That will go down as the third best batting average season in Federal League history, only behind a couple of names people will also recognize. Nick Larson in 2023 hit 667, and Bill Dunker for St. Patrick at the time hit 657. So Nate Stark getting onto that batting average Mount Rushmore for the all-time list. Congrats to him, and what a year.
Yeah, impressive to begin with, but if you pay attention to the ticker and then if you listen further on down the line, what's even more impressive is that he didn't do this just hitting singles up the middle or, little way he did, which he can do if he needs to. You'll see he hit a lot of lasers this year, and that makes it even more impressive to me.
Without a doubt. So we covered batting average, but now we're going to go into batting average adjacent, the hits category. To me, the Federal League Triple Crown is made up of batting average, hits, and RBI on the offensive side. Let's throw the graphic up for the top 10, but let's take a closer look at the top 5. First thing that sticks out to me, Mammoth all over the board.
Yep. If you have the mind to go scroll a little bit, you're going to notice a common theme at the top. It's the same teams kind of hovering with a couple of guys up there. You got a couple Mammoth guys, you got a couple Saints, a couple Hurricanes. When you see the standings are the way they are, this is kind of the data behind it. No surprises here when you really look at it, but some impressive numbers, especially from Mr. Casey Johnson. What a summer for him. And, I've talked to him personally throughout some of these struggles here and there throughout the past few years, so it's really cool to see him kind of break through that plateau and come out with a really solid summer for Mammoth, along with beating out his buddy Cork by 1.
Yeah, and that was a contest that really came down to the last innings of the season. I'm sure there was some scoreboard watching going around there because Jack Watson was up there. They played in the game after the Mammoth were done already, so there's Cork and Casey sitting there at 31 and 30, seeing if Jack was going to catch them in their last game against the Snappers, but I think he just had one hit on the final season, ended up a couple shy, but unbelievable season by all three of those guys. Jordy Horsch on that top 5 as well, 28 hits for Hastings. Nate Stark rounds out the top 5, another Mammoth name. But another thing that stood out for me is just the consistency for these guys. Casey and Jack made all 18 games. Tom made 16, which I think is pretty good for Cork.
Yeah.
He's normally a guy that's got some good family, man. He's got some conflicts, but it's a lot of games for him. But to be able to play in all 18 games, these guys seemed like they were probably on a mission to do just what they did. And hats off to Casey for
sure.
pulling it up.
When you get into the stats that require math. And now you're starting to consider, okay, for someone that just barely made the threshold of at bats or whatever, and you might have a couple of those sneak into them, and that's into the top, whatever. So that's why a lot of people don't take the batting average or any of that really seriously till basically August, right? Because the numbers aren't there, the body of work isn't there to really make it worthwhile. But so that being said, every now and then you'll get someone, a lot of times with fewer at bats, but they qualify, so they're up there. These guys are there all the time. They're taking all of their at bats, and so I feel like that makes it a little more impressive. That's just me. So kudos to those guys for. They just keep getting better. It's pretty cool to see guys like Casey, especially that don't usually get maybe necessarily the run that they deserve. So we'll take this second to give Casey a nice little awesome job on a great summer, bud.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head there. These are the type of guys that you want on your team. They show up, they're consistent, they produce, and what an accomplishment. Let's move on to RBI. Doesn't look a whole lot different than the hits list. There's a couple of new names in there, but our top 5 there, 3 Mammoth players back in the top 5, the same 3 Mammoth players. Casey with 22, Nate Stark with 24. We do get a new name in there. It's rookie Scott Marquardt from Waconia. What a season that guy had. It looked like for a while that he was going to set some all-time records for OBP, for maybe average. Just an unbelievable tear to start his Federal League career. Maybe tailed off a little bit towards the end. Maybe started focusing a little bit more on the Kimball Express, the town ball, portion that he still contributes towards. But great season from Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Making his... I imagine for a guy like that, and I might be out of pocket here saying this, but for a guy like that, I imagine that doing something like the Fed is kind of a JV thing to him. A guy like with the lineage that he has and the history that they have there. It's cool to have a guy like that in the league, though. And the talent brings out the best in everybody. So I know there was people keeping an eye on the numbers as the games kind of came and went throughout down the stretch there. So all in all, really impressive. Ross from Newmarket, that kind of came out of nowhere, right? So really good, nice mix of teams in there as well. So you got a little bit of everyone represented if you go into the top 10 and dive a little deeper. But you can tell the Mammoth score a lot of runs, the Hurricanes score a lot of runs, and the Saints score a lot of runs.
Yeah. There it is. Proof in the pudding there. Yeah, Nate Ross' season with 27 RBI, that will go down as the 8th best season in Federal League history all time. And Tom Corcoran, the RBI champion leader this year with 31, that'll go down as the 3rd best season all time. At least, and when I say all time, disclaimer again, in the stat era, we'll call it, right? Because obviously we were on paper for a long time. Some of the old timers who may or may not tune in might have something to say about the all-time usage there, but yeah, pretty impressive seasons for those guys. Tom, I think, is the only name that shows up on all 3 of the top 5 in what I call the offensive triple crown categories: batting average, hits, and RBI. Tom finishing 5th in average, 2nd in hits, 1st in RBI. Marquardt's on 2 of those 3. Casey's on 2 of those 3. Jack's just on 1 with the hits, but pretty incredible all around effort from Tom Corcoran this year.
Yeah, and it's nothing new, right? It's been kind of happening for going on 5 years now. Set the bar really high with that first year, though. I'll tell you that. So I know it's last year wasn't around as much, so it was cool to see him come back and put up the numbers, and he's consistently around and engaged. So when he's hitting, it's good for the league, or when he's around, it's good for the league. So congratulations, Tommy. Well done as always, and look forward to seeing what you got next year.
I just love the way the guy plays too. He hits a shot to the gap, right, where 90% of Federal Leaguers are happy coasting into second on that thing. This guy had 7 triples this year, so he runs hard out of the box on everything. The guy can fly for being tall and lanky. I will say probably, I don't know, it doesn't look like a ton in the box. He doesn't look like this guy that can go yard with every single pitch, but he gets after it, man. Another category he led the league in this year. Again, not a surprise. home runs, right? So he takes the home run championship crown. He's got 4 this year, brings him to 20 all time, which is obviously the best. You mentioned that magical season he had once upon a time. What was it? 12 home runs he hit that year, I think it was.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I remember I was on the squad that year, and he hit some in non-league games too. So he had some that didn't even end up counting. So take that for what it's worth.
Well, that's on him. I mean, he's got to know when it counts and when it doesn't.
When to turn it on and when to dial it down.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can hit home runs in non-league games, right?
Can they? I don't know. I only see a handful of homers in here. Oh, yeah, non-league games. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was 11 back in 2021. Just looked it up.
11.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, real cool stuff. I mean, to be honest, this sounds kind of douchey in a way, but I feel like everyone who goes yard in a summer deserves love, so I'm going to throw everyone who had one up on the screen at some point here during this episode, because if you manage to clear the fence over 35, I don't give a shit where it is. If it's at Greenfield, if it's at whatever. Take the trot, do this, milk it, because you never know when the last one. Some of us have already taken our last one, and we don't even know it yet. Well,
could not agree more with you.
Can't even admit it.
Yeah. 100% agreement. You and I actually tied for 49th in the league for home runs this year. So, I mean, we're right there.
That 49th spot was real hotly
competitive. Yeah, there's a lot of players tied for that. But so that means 48 different players went yard this year in the Federal League. 33 of them with just 1. 12 different guys tied with 2. The only other guys other than Cork to hit more than 2, both Northerns, Andy Hankemeyer and Nate Rost had 3 each. I mean, pitching the guys like that can get in your head a little bit, knowing that I've never, knock on wood, I've never given one up in the Federal League yet, but there's clearly a lot of guys that are capable.
Well, yeah, and it seems like the number of guys that are capable seems to be growing by the year. One more thing. I think Hankemeyer didn't even have enough bats to qualify for the batting title or anything like that. If I'm getting a couple in, not a full slate, let's say, perhaps, of at-bats that potentially he could have. That's a interesting little thing there, too. I mean, it's pretty impressive to get him when you just show up.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. 31 plate appearances for him, 3 home runs, ended up hitting 500, went 13 for 26 on the year. Of those 13 hits, 6 of them went for extra bases, so definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
I mean, that's good for the league, man. Just more guys that are up at the top to talk about.
So we'll move on to a stat that you need a little help on unless you're hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Runs scored, right? So you need some guys around you to knock you around a little bit unless you're really going to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself. But tops in this category, Mr. Jack Watson from Minnetonka. Again, a lot of the same names here. You see Scott Marquardt on there with 26. Cork back on the list in third with 24. Steve Kleppen right there tied with Cork, and then Nate Otto with 23. Same thing, right? Minnetonka, East Metro, Hastings, and then we get Marquardt in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happen to be fortunate enough to be near the top of any of those lineups that are listed there, you happen to get on base, you're probably there's a good chance you're gonna cross the plate at least once a game, right? It seems like if you play your cards right, if you do your job, someone else on those teams usually does their job. So these are the guys that score the points that count, right? So, and we'll have a little more on how these guys kind of make it happen when they aren't getting driven in further down the line with steals and whatnot. But yeah, these guys, familiar faces and the ones that make it happen, really. These are the guys that when you look at it, if they step in the box or if they're on base, you always have an eye for them. And I don't think you'd argue that with any of these 5 or 10.
Yeah, to their credit, I mean, these are all guys that will take the extra 90, right? They don't miss many opportunities to advance. They can all swipe bases if you're not paying attention. So yeah, they still owe a helmet slap to the guys behind them and in the order, but you can't appreciate enough how much heads up base running can put you in a position to do well in that category.
For sure, especially in this league. The most routine thing is liable for folly at some point. So the simple thing like a cutoff throw, right? Or something like that. always having your antenna up and reacting in real time is something that I think a lot of people in 35 up lose or don't have on all the time. It comes and goes.
Moving on to stolen bases, we finally get some new blood in here, some new teams, some new names. Frequent guests of the show, Mark Von Ruden, tied for fourth with Nick Davis of Milltown. First time we've said his name, but boy, he's a nice player. We had a chance to run up against them in the postseason, and yeah, he's a guy who I believe still plays for Dundas, and just a pretty smooth fielder, got a great arm, and yeah, he's going to be a threat in this league for a long time.
Yeah, you see his name pop up all the time, and it's just unfortunate, like, hopefully as the years go on and we perhaps maybe our reach gets a little bigger or whatever, we can go kind of spend more time with these guys. Because, I mean, you see all these names and you see the numbers, like, I'd like to put faces to them, like to get to know some of their stories, whatever, but that being said, I mean, what jumps out off the page to me, I mean, you see a few of the same familiar names that are on the runs list, right? But Logan and Todd are in there. And I know stolen bases are a stat that are near and dear to both their hearts, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a nice little race for second and third there. I feel like if we can swing it, this is a pie in the sky idea, but we could sell raffle tickets or something to get people to come out and watch some race. I feel like that would be really fun to watch. And I feel like for some reason, given how intense and dialed in those guys get, I feel like more people would show up to this than you'd think.
Yeah, maybe we introduce a skills challenge at the Federal League postseason sometime. But yeah, I would love to watch that. Todd Haig, he's a guy that, I say it, a few times on this show, but he's a guy that can absolutely fill up a stat sheet. All-time leader in stolen bases, 183 coming into this season. So that puts him at just shy of 200 now in the year, right? Yeah. So that puts him at 199 career stolen bases. So I'm sure he'll get that in game number 1 next year. That'll be a fun milestone to celebrate.
So if he's playing at like Rich Valley, tell the city of Inver Grove,
give him the base.
Todd's taking second base home with him. He's like, you better have a new one for it.
Yeah, move over, Ricky. I love it. Yeah, he's got a teammate who's fourth on that list, Jeremy Loretz. Not in the top 5 this year, but clearly a couple of guys who can still move really well. Always a threat when they're on base. But continuing on Todd, he's still the all-time leader in triples. Cork now breathing down his neck. Corcoran is second all-time with 17. Todd, the all-time leader in doubles. He's the all-time leader in runs scored, and now and in RBI as well. Unbelievable. And now he's second on the hits list. Both him and Ryan Marshall celebrating hitting that 300 hit milestone this year as well. My totals have Marshall at 313 career, and Todd has closed that gap. He's at 307. So that'll be fun to keep an eye on there to see who ends up being the all-time leader if and when those guys hang it up. But clearly they both had great seasons, have a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, I guess to put a bow on it, for FedUp season 3, starting on episode whatever the first falls in the first weekend, we're gonna have, like, remember the Sosa McGuire home run tracker? We'll get the Haig and Marshall hit tracker up there, and we'll keep track of who's leading who week to week.
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure both those guys listen to just about every episode, so I'm sure that they would enjoy that little ticker. Yeah, we've got one offensive category left to talk about. It's kind of a fun one. Hit by a pitch. I've watched Jack play a number of times. I don't notice that he's all over the plate, anything like that. I've never thrown to him, so maybe he is. He's a likable guy. I don't know why people are just blunking him all over the place, but 12 times he got hit this year. That is good enough for 4th all time on the Federal League list for a single season performance. Mike Mickelson's second on that list with 9. So I don't know. Maybe they're both running their mouth, and they.
Well, if you know anything about Jack, that just fits him to a T,
Yeah, absolutely.
He probably earned a lot of those. I feel like every team has that guy that. I get hit all the time, and usually it's the same guy, but every now and then there'll be a new guy for the summer or whatever. But I got to be honest, when I saw hit by pitches. When I saw that, or when I was looking into this stat, I totally expected to see Emery Hall up there with like 30, just because I feel like he's on top of the plate. I mean, I feel like I'm in his shadow when I'm behind the plate there. So I figured there's at least 30 dented baseballs somewhere, but so I was surprised to see him not at the top of the list. That's all I had to say.
Well, if Emery made a lot of games this year, I'd have to look it up how many he made. But yeah, and there's a lot of mass there too. Yeah. Yeah, did you?
We managed to hit him when he did show up.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, it's time now to flip onto the other side of the coin here and give the pitchers some love. I've got a number of guys who follow this show that accuse me of having a strong pitcher bias. A lot of our guests are pitchers. And yeah, you know what? You're right. I do have a pitcher's bias. There's just no better feeling than having complete control on the mound there and being able to control an outcome, all by yourself. And these guys that we're going to talk about today are 100% fitting that.
For sure. Pitchers we have pitchers as guests because pitchers are usually the most interesting.
And they're the best athletes.
Yeah, true. But some are actually surprisingly good athletes when you get every now and then a big Bart will sneak up on you and say, "Oh, he could move like that," or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, these are the ones that every team needs these guys, and everyone wants these guys that we have on the list here. Everyone's looking for the next one.
Well, if the hitting, pitching crown, we've covered those categories. The pitching triple crown to me is ERA, strikeouts, and wins. I think there's something to be talked about when it comes to innings pitched with some longevity, but that can be a little misleading if you've got no bullpen and you're just out there on an island every single game in, game out. There's something to be said about it. You got to piece together 26 innings a year if you go 7 in all your games. So, I mean, you need a guy that can eat innings, go the distance when you need him to give your bullpen a break. For me, it's ERA, it's strikeouts, it's wins. Looking at this ERA list, again, mammoth. All over the place. What the heck?
Yeah. And, it is on us and it's on everyone else, but especially us. The fact that we don't talk about Andy Gaddis, anytime pitching is brought up for the Mammoth, it's just grill, Kenny, maybe, Nate,
yeah, well, we hit
whatever.
Stark. We gave him some love this year too. But yeah,
right.
Andy was not a name that I think this is the first time we're mentioning it. And the guy finishes second on the season in ERA with a 0.45. Going to be good for 7th all time in a single season performance. Only topped by Bill Dunker, who was 0.44, just edged out there. That'll be 6th all time. So unbelievable season for those two. Bill Dunker, an ageless wonder, still doing it, still doing it at a very high level.
No kidding. Being disconnected, like I've talked about, not being as familiar with teams in other divisions. I mean, everyone knows Bill Dunker. Didn't know that he was still just dealing at a sub 1 ERA clip. Sorry, call me naive. Hats off, my apologies for assuming. Congrats, Bill. Good season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, preparing for Milltown in that playoff matchup with them, I was pretty sure we were going to see Tony Rome, but, and I know Bill still plays town balls. Figured that probably would enter into it, but he's a guy I didn't want to see. He's just a guy that he knows how to get outs. He's a grinder. He is just would have been a tough matchup. Tony threw really well against us too, and he had a heck of a season. But I was a little relieved not to see Dunker on the mound for that.
Something about the last name. No, when you hear it, everyone knows who he is, right? So automatically there's half a point for him, right?
Rounding out the top 5 there, Matt Grill in 3rd with a 0.97 ERA. Obviously no stranger to lists like these. We like to talk about Brandon Casadecalvo carrying Minnetonka, right? Well, I saw Tommy Hansen throw in the playoffs, and he is for real, man. And the numbers bear that out. A 1.22 ERA for Tommy Hansen this year with the Minnetonka Saints.
Yeah, Tommy. I mean, going down the list, Collier threw well for them too. This year. So they got, Collier's 1.34. So, Brandon's not even on the top 10 list, and Minnetonka has 2 guys that are on it, and so that's pretty crazy because I feel like Brandon's the one that gets the ball in the big game situations, and I might be wrong.
No, you're 100% right, and there's should be something to be said about that. He's drawing the big games, the big matchups, and that's probably the reason that he's not on the list, which makes
right.
A guy like Matt Grill's numbers even more impressive because he's going to go most of the time for the Mammoth regardless of who it is, especially if it's a big game. So unbelievable season for him. But another guy on that list who's a big game pitcher too, new name to the Federal League, Ben Schroeder with Minoka, 1.29 ERA this year. Obviously a huge part of their championship season run. He's going to be a guy I think who's going to be really good and on a lot of these all-time lists when it comes to career stats.
For sure. I don't even want to get back into, we've talked about Minoka enough, but the fact that they keep they're bringing in guys that are the young guys in the league. They're not just bringing a guy that's 45 that just learned about it, right? So they have time to really just keep this thing moving and moving. Ben's never met him before, and I just want to give him a shout out because he actually came up to me just out of nowhere while I was over there filming at the tournament and introduced himself and said, "Hey, nice, super nice dude." So yeah, really cool, a really impressive debut for him. But just looking up and down the list, that was the first time I realized that the Minnetonka Saints were working with perhaps a little heavier artillery than I might have thought.
Well, I'm sure those guys were grinding teeth every time we just talk about Casa de Calvo, being the only pitcher that they have. So maybe we feel
hopefully
the
they didn't
fire
give him a hard time about it.
Let's move on to strikeouts. Just like batting average is to hitting, ERA is to pitching. You can just barely qualify. You can draw some bad opponents and kind of eke your way into a great season. Not saying any of those guys did this, but strikeouts is one of those that is just undebatable. Like everyone's got the same opportunity once the season starts to go out and rack up the totals. So I love looking at this one because you have to throw with some velocity. You have to be crafty. You have to know how to get guys out. These guys are pitchers. They're not up there throwing. These guys are pitchers, and the top 5 list some really great names on here. Jim Brower and Brandon Wolf, both of Tonka Bay, start our top 5 list with 48 for Brower and 54 for Wolf. Talk about at length this season about how that's a powerful 1-2 punch, but great for Tonka Bay to see both those names on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a lot of strikeouts in 2 of your primary, that's most of your games, right? Presuming they take up most of their innings. That is a lot of people just sitting down and a lot of time for the fielders just hanging out.
Yeah.
For the Tonka Bay squad. Like you said, it's wild. Like I learned this when I was young, playing town ball in Wisconsin. We used to play the Exland old timers over in Exland, and some people might know where that is. They just have these old timers that come play. I remember the first time we went over there and you see it and they just kind of moving like us. And it's like, oh, okay, they made every play. They did not strike out and the pitcher hit every play, and so when you come into this league, it's hard to strike guys out because there are so many people that have such good bat skills. Even if they might have lost some pop, guys know how to get to the ball still. It's super impressive to have this many Ks in a league that is full of guys that are real grinders.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that surprises me most about the hitters in this league is they can still hit velocity. It doesn't matter how old they get. Like if you're straight, even if you're in the 80s, you're going to get touched up a little bit. You have to have a breaking pitch against the best teams in this league, especially to reach numbers like these guys have. Zach Riedberger in 3rd place there with 56 of the RC Rockets. He beat us early in the season. I had no idea who this guy is. He's ripping heaters behind the dugout in between innings. And I'm like, what are we losing to here? But he, unbelievable player. And when they get Colin back and rocking, when they get Fisk up and back up to, what he's capable of doing. And then you got Riedberger in there too. Like that's a team that is starting to build around a really great staff and they've got some hitters to go along with it. I mean, look out for the Rockets. They're rising, pun intended.
They are. Yeah, no, for sure. We've kind of touched on their core a little or throughout the season. And Riedberger, I'm glad you brought up the darts, man, because I wanted to so bad, but I didn't know but He seems like a cool dude, but no, he is a throwback. If he feels like was meant to throw in the early to mid 80s.
Yeah.
But he's
back
got
when you could
stuff.
blow in the dugout, right?
Yeah, so maybe next time I hop on the mound, maybe I'll buy a pack of Newports and see how it goes.
There you go. Take a piece out of Zach's book for sure. Trent Larson, number 2 on this list, was 61. We talk about Trent quite a bit with him and Josh Lowen being the 1-2 punch out in Burnsville. We'll hear more on Trent's season later when we cover some more stats, but still a guy that I don't know how he stays as healthy as he does. I know he's had some injury setbacks, but the amount of workload that he shoulders year in, year out, to be able to strike out 61 guys in a season, I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
I think I mentioned something a couple of weeks ago, how just basically apologizing to him because every time I personally, when I think about Burnsville, I just think of Josh because he always just handles us. And then we got a chance to see Larson in the playoffs, and whew, he was dealing, man. So, yeah, I won't forget him now, and I'll make sure I'll check his stats every time we're looking at Burnsville box scores from now.
Tops on this list, Mr. Cliff Christopherson of the Rosemount Pipers, 65 strikeouts this year. Love Cliff. I mean, he's just such a humble dude. He competes in just a weird way. Like, he loves to have fun on the mound. He's jaw-jacking, with the other teams, but it's always in a fun-spirited way. But he's a gamer, man. He wants the ball in some big situations. We talk about Grill and his ability to come back and throw on short rest. Cliff's a guy who'll come back and do it too. I mean, I've seen him catch at the day after starting. He's just a guy that will do whatever is needed. Hats off to him for getting this, strikeout crown, we'll call it that. But I think if Cliff had it his way, he might have had 100 because I know he could have thrown a lot more innings this year, but just being a good teammate, moving over and trying to get, more guys involved, and in order to set themselves up for a tough AAA bracket, you need more than one arm. And so he kind of shared the load a little bit more than he's used to maybe this season, but still able to be the tops on.
Yeah. If you've seen him throw, it's not surprising that he's on this list. I wanted to apologize to Trent Larson again because I gave Cliff at least 2 of those strikeouts this year. So I actually aided him in getting that gap widened from you. So my apology. I owe you so much, Trent Larson of the Burnsville Bulldogs.
You need to send him a gift or something. I mean, gee.
Congratulations on your strikeout crown, Cliff. Anyways, Trent, I'm sorry, man. I should have known from the get-go. I should have been mentioning you more. And I should have maybe put one in play for you to reduce that gap a little bit. But
seems like an apt time to mention my only triple of the season was off Cliff.
Can you tell it's late?
Yeah,
season too?
I think you're right, yeah. But I think Cliff's comeback, if I know him well enough, would be he would ask what the score was in that game. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to wins at this point. Another stat that is a combination of opportunity, maybe a little more indicative of the team you play on. It's possible to get a win when, you're not at your best if your team can outslug the other, but there's no slackers on this list. We're going to cover the top 5 here, but it's a lot of the same names we've been talking about. Brandon Wolf was 6, Ben Schroeder was 6, Matt Grill was 6, Tony Kaiser from Hastings ended up having 6 as well. Mm-hmm. And then the 2 guys who set themselves just 1 victory apart, Brandon Casadecalvo from Minnetonka and Cliff Christopherson of Rosemount also had 7. Those will go down as tied for 8th as all-time single-season records for wins in a season. But it's tough enough for your team to win 7 games in a year in this league, let alone 1 individual player. So pretty great accomplishment there.
Yeah, all while you just said, or we kind of touched on it just a minute ago, how both squads are kind of diversifying their pitching duties a little more this year versus the past, perhaps. So, guys like Brandon and Cliff are ripe for perhaps potentially more victories if they were to get the run rate that they probably could handle. But like you said, every team needs more than 1, so it's kind of playing the long game. So who knows, it could have ended up with maybe 10. Guys like that are liable to run into a 10-win season one of these times, just feeling the right way. And your team scores a lot of runs, who knows? So, but yeah, impressive.
Time to give a little love to the longevity guys, the workhorses of the year. 8 different guys threw 50 or more innings for their team this year. We mentioned briefly Josh Lowen. He ended with 50 on the dot in the regular season. Trent Larson, his teammate, ends up being tops on this list. He threw 57 innings this year. So an unbelievable accomplishment for him. We get a couple of new names on this list, though. Mick Dudero of Elko, 51 and a third.
UW has represent. Okay. What up? I wore this just for you, Mick.
There you go. Sean Model of the St. Michael Angels, great on him to really pick up the load a little bit, while our buddy Dan Pluff needs his normal 2 to 3 weeks off in between starts. Model with 51 and 2/3 on the year. Alex Tava of Northfield Millers with 55, and then Cliff with 56.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the first thing you think of when, like, you mentioned new names, right? And you'll see a couple new teams here. And in stats like this, these are the guys where, like, I understand and I know where you're coming from with your preference, your hierarchy of stats and what you consider the Triple Crown. I would argue that there's a difference between a traditional baseball Triple Crown and a Federal League Triple Crown. Longevity stats. Struggling, can't, and just eating it, wearing it, or whatever, just because they know we got no one else, and it's gonna be even longer if one of these other clowns tries to do this shit. So I think these guys deserve a lot of love, and Angus with all the complete games guys, all the guys that wear it and put the saddle on their back just to get guys to the parking lot. I think they deserve a lot more love than they get. So hopefully these guys can appreciate. Maybe I'll make their names bigger.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But no, I think I feel like this is a unique Federal League badge of honor to be an innings pitched title holder.
Like I mentioned, 8 guys, 50 or more innings. Wade Johnson and Zach Riedberger, the other 2 names we hadn't touched on yet in that 50-plus club.
Yeah.
Another 10 guys through 40 or more, including your teammate Grant Shara, Jim Brower on that list, Bujold from Metro, Al Weeman from Newmarket, Casa Calvo with 44 and a third, Scott Angus, you mentioned, Steve Schneider from St. Croix Valley ended up throwing 41 innings this year as well. Guys like James Wallish from the Senators and Charlie Steingast, Brent Janke from the Chaska Diamonds. Those are 3 guys that are in a little bit different category for me. I mean, their teams don't win a ton of games. They're usually perennial B teams, but to go out there when maybe some plays aren't being made behind you and scores a little lopsided, but to get that workload in still, that takes a special type of player for sure. So recognition for those guys is well deserved.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is, like, those are the guys that when you hear, he's not going to be there, he's not coming tonight. Those are the guys, when you hear it, it's the worst because you rely on them and they don't. I think everyone, ball players, it's implied, right? But audibly giving them some love, I think, is well deserved.
Well, when it comes to all-time stats, the only one I took a real deep dive on for all-time stats, kind of compiling this year's numbers with the all-times list. The top 7 pitchers and win totals are all still active. So a guy like Matt Grill with his 6th this year, he gets into the mix. He's got 37 all-time. That's good for 7. Betting man might take Grill to be the all-time leader here in another 3 or 4 seasons. It looks like he's definitely capable of doing that. Guys like Jamie Steinberg, he's 6th on the list. He just had a couple of wins this year, but he's got 40 now all-time. So I said it earlier in this episode, but he's a guy that just absolutely needs to be in the Hall of Fame and in there soon. Dave Killian, still doing it. He's got 42 all-time wins. Kenny Wangler, we like to talk about him. He is 3rd on that list with 44. And then there's 2 guys at the top who are still doing it. Goose, we give him a little bit of run. St. Anthony's got 56. And Tony right there behind Tony Brown of the Mustangs. He's got 55. So it's what a great testament to longevity, craftiness. I mean,
How many wins did you say that Matt has? Grill?
37.
So he's averaging 7.4 wins a year so far in his Fed League career.
Yeah, that's why I said in 3-4 seasons he'll be tops all time.
Who's this year, man? And one of them was you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, hey, you kept him from 38. How about that?
Yeah, make that make sense. All right.
Yeah, I love looking at that list. Hats off to these guys who've just been doing it for a really long time and can really sling it. Wraps up our stat portion of the show. Could go on for days on that. I love the numbers. I think it's such a huge part of baseball, and I think it's such a cool thing the Federal League does is track this stuff to just make it more of a big league feel, looking for your name in the box scores, the all-time list. I think that's super cool that Todd has kept that as well as he has for the last 20 years or so. We have some awards to give out before we part ways, so let's go ahead and do that. I'll start by reading our disclaimer one more time with these. These, of course, unofficial awards, not Federal League recognized. These are just FedUp awards that there's no hardware trophy for, but hopefully it's a little bit meaningful for each of our recipients. We're going to give out Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and MVP. So 3 special little recognition tokens. Well, let's start with Rookie of the Year. I predicted Taylor Nelson preseason for this. I got the right position. I got the right name, but I think this year's Rookie of the Year, there's a couple of names that really are deserving. If it's Marquardt and Waconia, if it's Horsch, I think Hastings had a couple of guys that, could be in that mix. But for me, it's Ben Schroeder from the Minooka Grays. Just what he did this season, and then the season culminating in that three-peat. And he was such a big part of it. They don't do it without him. Ben Schroeder is the FedUp Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Kind of came in just guns blazing from the get-go, really. If you hadn't heard his name within the first couple weeks, you certainly had heard it by the end of the month of May. Really a cool guy to run into, right? And I think being on a team that is as good as Minooka is certainly helps. A team that plays defense the way they do, runs, hits, whatever. But the fact that he was just tells you how good he is, that he's just comes in and slots right in as one of their top guys with the stable of arms that they have. So great first start for Mr. Schroeder. Maybe we need to get him on because there was something brought up during the we were talking about our last episode coming up here in the next week about the mailbag and all that. And one of the ideas was get some perspective from a new Federal League rookie. So I figured what better time to bring it up than now. Maybe we can get Ben or one other person that was in the league for the first time on the horn. But that being said, congratulations, Ben. It helped Minooka get to their third one, and it doesn't seem like they're not showing any signs of slowing down, and I'm sure he'll be right in the mix next year as well.
Gotten a chance to know Ben a little bit. Unbelievable dude. All of our award recipients this year are annoyingly humble. I feel like if I had these guys' level of talent, like I'd be telling everyone about it, right? But that's what I tell my son all the time. When you're good, you'll tell everyone. When you're great, they'll tell you. And all 3 of our award recipients are definitely great. Love to sing their praises. Well, let's move on to Cy Young on that note. Could have been a couple of different names. When I looked at that Triple Crown that I like to lean on, nobody was on all 3 categories. Not even Ben. But this guy finished tied for first in wins, first in strikeouts, and was just a few decimal points back in the ERA category. This year's Cy Young goes to Cliff Christopherson of the Rosemount Pipers.
Yeah, big game pitcher. Everyone knows. And I feel like if he's basically the straw that stirs that drink down there, if you look at most other teams that are in the top, well, a lot of the other teams in the top of the league these days have 2 bona fide ones, right? Don't get me wrong, Rosemount has a lot of good arms, but Cliff is just on a different level, right? So great season. There's cases to be made all over the place, really, if you really look. And let's put that other disclaimer out there on what teams count earned runs versus non, this and that. So just putting it out there, just for somebody to think about. But yeah, no, Cliff. There's a handful of guys you probably could have given it to, but Cliff certainly is at the top of the list there.
Yeah, preseason we had Jim Brower in that slot. He had a great season. So great to see Jim pitch so well all year. I really hope he comes back next year. I know there's been some talk of him potentially hanging it up and focusing more on his facility out there. Unbelievable facility out in Eden Prairie. So if he decides to do that, don't blame him, but the league would definitely be worse off without him. So hopefully we can rope him back in for another season at least. But one last award to give out. It's the MVP. The Federal League award went to Mr. Tom Corcoran, and it is impossible for me to disagree with that. Tom Corcoran, great season. We mentioned the 4 home runs, the 7 triples, was first in RBI with 31, was second in hits only to his teammate, was 5th in batting average, hit .588. Just a great guy, great teammate, great player, and super humble. Very well deserved this MVP award. Congrats, Mr. Tom Corcoran.
Yeah, I feel like this is Cork Renaissance. So for context, first year, Mammoth come in kind of, it's a little loud, and Cork has a great year, and all you hear is Cork. And so that kind of, when Cork's not that kind of guy, so kind of let it die down a little bit. And it seemed like he just was kind of in the background for a few years here. So it's nice to see him he's at 16 games this year. He's hitting bombs. He's taking extra bases, all that stuff. He's just a great ball player. I mean, he's a guy you want to hang out with in your dugout, in the parking lot, wherever, man. Just a good dude. So if there was some person I am always going to be absolutely happy for winning, he's one of them. So congratulations.
Congratulations indeed to not only our award recipients, but all of the players we mentioned tonight on fantastic seasons. Tons of names that I'm sure we could have mentioned. A lot of other categories that we tracked that certainly could have made the list, could have gone a lot deeper on some of the all-time, guys. Would love to commit an episode to that next year. Once we'll do it early in the year once Todd gets all the numbers updated with this year's season. But so fun again to have these numbers to look at, to reflect on, to really just be able to break down the season a little bit further and give some guys some much deserved recognition.
For sure. As long as I had the minute, and you just touched on something that kind of triggered this. Were a lot of, I noticed when I was diving into this, there were a handful of familiar names, right, that didn't make the cut for qualifying, right? And there's some people that were having really good seasons that just fell a plate appearance or two short. And I just felt like Scope, 35 plate appearances, was hitting .321, OPS 821. Drew Rhoda, McCluskey from Vesely, Hendricks, Matt Moriarty was hitting .500 with 35 plate appearances. Buckner from the Mammoth, and Pfeffer as well, .517. He was 3 plate appearances short. I mean, I just hate to leave, just missing the cut. I mean, if you talk about, most of these guys are recognizable names throughout the league, and guys that you don't want to face in the box at any time, but just didn't happen to make the cut as far as some of these stats. So I just felt like it was apt to give them a little shout out too, just as long as we were talking.
Well, I was going to keep their names out of it as extra motivation for next year to show up a little bit more, but that list, you got to mention Berenguer too from the Voyagers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that had another incredible season too. If only he could have.
What up?
Yeah.
Berenguer, what up?
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was like I said, there was 100 and some odd, or I can't remember how many it was, that qualified, and that didn't even occur to me until halfway going through. I'm like, gosh, I didn't even look at who's not qualified, who's on the list there, and kind of dove into the numbers a little bit. The one thing that jumped, Eric Hendricks, Rockford, right? 6 plate appearances. He had 13 RBI, and a handful, so I thought that was pretty impressive because, 13 RBI would probably be the leader on our team, so that guy didn't even make it. Looks like he wasn't there all the time, right? So just felt like there's some guys that deserve a little nod as well. So
I did see that tweet from Jamie Houselog too, that if guys come up short, you can throw in an offer to make up for that, and if they still win that category, they would still get recognition, at least from an MLB standpoint. We did not go that deep on this. Maybe we should have, but
I'd have to get my extra thick pocket protector out to handle that. Sorry.
So Jamie,
not today.
Apologies for coming up a little bit short there, but that is our stats episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If your name was called, I hope you got a little extra enjoyment out of that. But super fun episode to put in the homework. Sorry it took us a little bit longer to get it out, but thank you for listening. We do have one episode left for you. It is going to be our way too early look at 2026. Like we mentioned, we are going to open up that FedUp mailbag. Hit us with everything you got. We'll take on as many submissions as we can. Rule changes, format changes, whatever you want to throw our way, we will try and take on. So hopefully we have the problem of having way too many submissions to cover in an hour and a half. But really looking forward to hearing what the league has there, because, if you're not innovating, if you're not getting better, then what are you doing, right? So hope to hear from the league. I know there's a lot of great ideas, and super happy to have the platform to be able to allow people to express those.
I am too. Please tweet, send texts, emails, whatever. Just if you have questions, you want to talk about anything Fed related, to be our guest.
We've already got a handful of great submissions, so really looking forward to closing the season out with that. May mix in a guest or two as well, but look for that episode next week as we close out the 2025 Federal League season officially, and the FedUp season as well. But until that episode, stay fed.